Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. Tonight we're here to break down the Giants All-22 film on the defensive side of the ball. A very interesting game for the Giants. Defense came up big in big spots, gave up some plays, but at the same time had a really limiting effort against Jordan Love, who, by the way, for context purposes, Nick, we need to consider, came into this game red hot, ripping off 300 plus yard games against the Lions. The Chiefs, he put up numbers, put up big time throws. And then he faces Wink Martindale and the Giants, and he is unable until the end of the game to really generate much in the passing game. I know the win played a factor, but I also think Wink Martindale played a factor. And the defense played a factor. They're just playing so confidently together with each other, led by Bobby Okereke. I feel like when you have a second-level player like Bobby Okereke, who's playing as fast and confidently as he is now, Nick, this last I talked about on Twitter, like 7, 8, 9 game stretch, whatever it actually is, it makes such a difference in your defense. This is what we also talked about for a long time, Nick, like finding that inside linebacker to make the difference. But you see it with Roquan Smith and the Ravens, who are one of the best defenses in the NFL. If you look across the NFL at some of the better defenses over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, to me, it always seems similar that they always have that Mike. They always have that middle linebacker who's playing fast, playing fluidly, great eyes, both in run defense and in coverage, which we saw from Bobby Okereke again in this game. He's such a consistent force, and the Giants were a dominant defense this on third down. They made big stops in the red zone that led to 2 field goal attempts, one the Packers made, one the Packers missed. If they turned either of those into touchdown drives, the Giants lose this game, Nick. So this was the type of plan like we saw. Like this was the blueprint from last year, right? It's not like the Giants defense was like a Baltimore Ravens 2023 level dominant on a per play basis last year, but they were great in the red zone and they were great on third downs. And that's how you win football games, the money downs. And what else do they add this year? They're adding turnovers to the mix. They're creating and forcing a lot of different turnovers now on a consistent basis that are determining and impacting the football game.
Absolutely. Kayvon Thibodeau stripping Jordan Love, pause, and then also Jason Pinnock playing center field and coming away with that interception on a very ill-advised throw from Jordan Love. And honestly, to be real, that was defensive holding on Cordell Flott, who I was not impressed with in this game. I'm going to be absolutely, definitely not his best game, but I digress a little bit. It's interesting. So I was looking at the Green Bay game plan and the whole question on how windy was it in the stadium. I think it's fair because you saw both of the offensive approach, but also knowing how much the Giants blitz, and they didn't blitz as much as I initially thought, but knowing how much the Giants blitz, it's also something to maybe just think that they were throwing the football out of Jordan Love's hands so damn quickly and around the line of scrimmage and doing all of these like little trickery type stuff to really just take advantage of the aggressive nature of Wink Martindale. But I don't know if that was necessarily the case. The Giants blitzed on 34% of snaps, 47% of third down snaps. They ended up bringing the blitz to get after Jordan Love. And if you just watch the first quarter and a half of this game, it was just so many easy, simple concepts. Just get the football in Jordan Reed's hands. I had like 10 targets in this game, like 27 yards. And then he was obviously very effective when they handed the football off to him. So it was a little bit of a weird game from that standpoint. Also, the Packers were just taking anything underneath off of the Giants' depth when they dropped to zone depth. How many big plays the Packers hit off of that? The A.J. Dillon 35-yarder. Patrick Taylor had, I think, like an 18-yarder or something around that number as well. Basically, based off whatever the linebackers were doing, Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden, if they dropped to far depths, then they just dumped the football off, and Jason Pinnock missed the tackle on A.J. Dillon, leading to like a 35.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the point there, Nick, I think, at least for me. It's like some of this is just a repeat of what we've seen this season. It's part of what this Giants defense is, right? In 2023, Nick, they're not perfect. We're not watching a perfect top 2, top 5 defense. They're missing tackles in the open field that are leading to big plays. The Seattle game is the biggest example of that, obviously. But there have been examples all season.
San Francisco game with Debo.
With Debo. There's been examples all season, really. And on that play, like Jason Pinnock, like that's supposed to just be a check down to Dillon where we have him boxed in and bracketed in. And it's A.J. Dillon, by the way. We're not talking about like the freakiest nature guy in the open field.
They made A.J. Dillon look like Tommy DeVito. I was like, what the heck's going on here?
Just a bad angle by Jason Pinnock, though, to be honest. And it's weird because Jason Pinnock takes good angles in coverage, but I feel like when he's making tackles, I don't know if it's an angle thing or I don't really know exactly what it is, Nick, but if
I
you
think he's
watch that
over
play,
aggressive too, man. He
yeah,
just
maybe it's just that. It's the
doesn't
pursuit.
wrap up. He's just like, I'm going to annihilate this guy. And he goes low on AJ. Like, that's like the last guy you want to try to just tackle low without wrapping up is
Right.
AJ Dillon.
Yeah. And Dylan made a great move and he turned that into another 30, 40 yards down the field. But yeah, like you said, that the Packers were taking advantage of that. I felt like there were times where in the second half, at least, I thought versus the first half tape, I felt like Jordan Love had a better feel for what Wink Martindale was doing, and he understood it and processed it better and adjusted well. To what the Giants are doing, that could also be Matt LaFleur. I don't know who to give the credit to there, but ultimately overall, like even if you consider those plays, like the big shot play to Tucker Kraft and some of the sideline throws he made, it's still like in the red zone and on these third down situations, they didn't cash in. The Giants were the guys. The Giants defense were the ones who cashed in, and that again made the difference, I thought.
Not only didn't they cash in, they shot themselves in the foot.
Oh yeah.
It was also kind of funny. I think I have it in the plays because on the sack with Dexter Lawrence and Azeez Ojulari that knocked the Packers out of field goal range, or well, I mean they were still in field goal range, but Anders Carlson missed the field goal. That's very consequential to the end of this game and the result, right? There were two Packers who tripped on that play, though. They the one on Azeez Ojulari, like I wanted to be like, wow, Azeez Ojulari just absolutely annihilated their tackle, and he still did. But if you look, Patrick Taylor like runs behind the tackle and kicks him in the foot.
Because at first I thought that was when I first watched that on broadcast, Nick, and then when I went to go watch the tape, I thought it was Azeez Ojulari doing great hand usage. I thought he trapped him and threw him down, but then you can see that he did trip on the running back.
And if you look at the other side too, I believe the same thing happened, and Jordan Love just got sandwiched. It was like simultaneous.
Lawrence and Ojulari. Rough hit. That was the biggest hit of the game in the pocket for any quarterback.
Absolutely, man. It was huge. And one more thing before we get into the film too that I have.
I got one more too, so I'll go after you.
We probably have a couple more, but it has to do with Bobby Okereke. Because I was watching this game and I was like, dude, when is this guy out of position?
And that's the thing.
He's not out of position. And the Packers tried to run counter once in this game. And you saw Okereke, 41. They're right in position. And it was just a pile up. And it just made me think, less than a year ago, we were sitting here like the Giants linebackers suck. They're terrible.
They're so out of position. Jalen Smith was so out of position so often.
If you watch the divisional round where the Giants got spanked by the Philadelphia Eagles, basically the Eagles' game plan was we're just going to attack the second level, and they're not going to be able to stop us on these short little concepts, throwing the football, or we're going to spread everybody out, put 4 receivers on the numbers or outside the numbers, create a light box, and then run the football, and those linebackers will never be in position. And that was basically the entire Philadelphia Eagles game plan. And I'm not saying the Giants are going to compete against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are still a much more talented team than the New York Giants. But that issue has been somewhat rectified by the presence of Bobby Okereke and the development of Micah McFadden.
That's a great point by you, Nick, because there was, examples of it. Like it's not just like that he's in the right position in the run game. It's also that he's in the right position in the pass game. You brought it up in the notes and I looked at it on tape, put it on Twitter. There's an example of like him. He's going to get his 3rd interception of the year. He reads the Jordan Love's eyes so well. The ball ends up being batted at the line of scrimmage, but if that ball doesn't get batted at the line of scrimmage on that play, I don't know if we have that in the film breakdown.
I think I do. Yeah. It got double batted, by the way.
Double batted, to a second bat. But if it doesn't, it's driving right into his hands for a pick. And honestly, I watched that play back a few times from different angles. He might have had a pick 6 on that. Like he had a very clear path, and he would have just had to beat, I think, one of the tight ends and then Jordan Love for the 6. But who knows? But more so than that, Nick, I think the biggest thing is, and you brought this up as well in your notes, and I looked at a couple plays that showed this, including one with Dexter Lawrence wasn't even on the field. The night and day difference, dude, in the Giants' ability to fit these, to fit the power gap to fit the counter specifically and slow down counter and beat power gap concepts in the run game as a run defense. It's crazy, dude. Like if you throw on the tape against the Eagles, and that's what I'm excited to see when the Giants do play the Eagles this year, Nick. Like last year, obviously it was helpless in the divisional round, but nowadays, like I don't even know, like they did it one rep in this game without Dex even on the field, just because their linebackers are so quick to fill and their linebackers' eyes are so fast right now, and they're playing so confident within this specific scheme and this system, and they're reading the play so well. But how does a defense, Nick, in your mind, go from like one of the most unbelievably, unimaginably bad units at stop and counter to like pretty damn good at stop and counter in just one off season.
It's because the linebackers are the primary defenders to stopping the counter. That and the edge rusher. The edge rusher needs to set it with the squeeze of the wrong arm, which dictates what those linebackers are going to be doing, whether they're going to fill, whether they're going to spill, who is going to replace, if they end up filling and they do end up spilling it outside. Okereke and McFadden, they work very well together. Look, there's a rapport for all 11 players out there, right? You need to know what your teammate is going to do. It's the best way to communicate with each other. So there's no mishaps or miscommunications on the defense. Linebackers specifically, when you are fitting power gap and when you are fitting counter, you need to know what your other linebacker is doing. And you rarely see mistakes from those two. Last year, whether it was Jalen Smith, and I'm not trying to throw shade at Jalen Smith, but Jalen Smith, whether it was rookie Micah McFadden, Jared Davis, look, he wasn't always in position. He brought like a level of physicality that I think Wink Martindale really appreciated. Right now, both of these guys are physical, but they're in position too. Like they're clicking on all cylinders, Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke, and that should really excite all New York Giant fans because it's masked the biggest mistake, the biggest mishap of anything of the 2022 team last year might have been the New York Giants linebacking core. And that says a lot because the Giants, they were flawed last year. Yes, they won a playoff game, but as we brought up so many times, they couldn't create an explosive play on offense. It was like pulling teeth for them to create explosive plays on offense, specifically when they were passing the football. But we still looked at the linebacker position and we were like, yo, we got to scout the linebackers. Let's scout Jack Campbell. Let's scout all of these guys, right. Trenton Simpson. And then they signed Bobby Okereke, and we were happy about that, especially after Bobby Okereke almost fought Daniel Jones. We're like, hey, he's got some fire in him. But we knew he was a good football player, and he's exceeding my expectations, even though I was excited when the Giants gave him $10 million a year.
I completely agree with that. He's exceeded my expectations too, which is hard to say. He's honestly not only living up to this contract, but in a lot of his exceeding this contract. And it's very rare that you find a home run contract in free agency, Nick. And I don't want to call this one yet because I would imagine, Nick, if we look back at the 2016 season and we were talking about the Janoris Jenkins contract that free agency or the Olivier Vernon contract that free agency, we'd probably call those home runs too. And that's kind of the point of free agency. It doesn't always last, but Okereke feels a little different to me because he's a much younger player, doesn't really have much of an injury history looking back. It's somewhat of an injury, but nothing crazy. And just because of how well I think he fits this specific system. And now I don't know, again, if this will be the system they have next year on defense. There's obviously been some discussion about Wink Martindale and Brian Dable not, continuing along the same path next year. I hope that is remedied, and I really hope that's the case because I think the worst thing you can do for this defense is ask them to learn a brand new system. And as you've mentioned in the past, Nick, and we've mentioned, like, we don't even feel like everyone's a fit for a different system. Like a lot of these guys fit this system, especially the building blocks. But I just think he's exceeded everything that I even expected out of Okereke.
Same here, man. I'm excited about the future with him. One thing I will say, I think you bring up a valuable point about 2016. Now, this is no slight on Olivier Vernon. He dealt with a lot of injuries. Janoris Jenkins and Bobby Okereke are two very different individuals. I think it's safe to say that. And I think from that perspective, the Giants aren't going to have an issue with Bobby Okereke.
Right. And then, with Harrison, he was signed later into his career. That was the third one, Damon Harrison, but he was older at that point. And when they finally traded him, it wasn't really a matter of that. So it's a good point. I mean, like you said, Okereke brings a leadership level to this defense and to this team and locker room as well. One final thing before we get into the film, Dexter Lawrence, man. I mean,
stupid.
It's clear he's like not 100% healthy, and the Giants are being very careful with him. But he played just 29 of 68 snaps, so a little over a third. 20 of those were on pass plays, only 9 snaps against the run. But like, despite that, dude, he had 5 pressures, a quarterback hit, 6 pressures, a quarterback hit. The charting I saw on PFF was 5, but it could have been 6. A quarterback hit, a quarterback sack. I mean, blowing up double teams. Like, it's just unbelievable how good he is and how we have one of the players in the NFL who I think is probably, let's see, what is he now? 24. I'm just trying to confirm his age. I think he's turning 25. So no, never mind. He's older than I thought. He's 26 years old. But either way, I mean, for a D tackle, we're probably going to get another 4 years of dominant play at least out of Dexter Lawrence.
I hope so. I think it's going to be maybe even more. Depends on how you quantify dominant, right? But especially if the Giants find another Leonard Williams type. And even with Leonard Williams now gone, I don't see a significant drop off. No shot at Leonard Williams, but I think bringing in Nacho and Ashawn Robinson, both which played 40 snaps in this game. They both played 40 snaps each. They look fine out there. They're not Leonard Williams. I think Leonard Williams is better than both of those. I think Leonard Williams offers more as, I would say, a run defender and a pass rusher. But I don't think the drop-off is that glaring, especially when you consider the Giants got a second-round pick.
Sure.
There were a couple reps where A'Shawn got buried, but there were also a couple reps where A'Shawn Robinson, especially on those reach blocks when the Giants are in nickel personnel and they try to run these outside zone runs. The Giants, they played a lot of nickel against the Packers, who run a lot of 11 personnel. So they match 11 with nickel. Makes sense. A'Shawn Robinson does a really good job defeating those reach blocks by working through the outside shoulder, getting to the play side, and then making the tackles. And he does the same thing from the backside often, defeating scoop blocks, and then making the tackle. And Nacho, it's a little bit more different. I don't think he has maybe the lateral agility of an A'Shawn Robinson, but Nacho at the point of attack, that's a strong dude. He had one rep. I think it might have been against Myers. I put it up on Twitter and I said super nacho or something like that, or spicy nacho, I think is what I said. Because you see him sink his hips, you see him explode into contact, and they're kind of stalemates with the center. And then he just gets this second effort push, and the dude just like falls backwards, and Nacho just falls on top of him. It just shows you the strength. And those are the guys who are directly behind Leonard Williams. Sure. Jordan Riley had a really nice play in this game. Looked pretty solid. DJ Davidson, I think, is a little bit more athletic than I originally thought when the Giants drafted him on day 3 of the 2022 draft. I don't necessarily know how that battle is going to shake out between Jordan Riley and DJ Davidson, but I'm encouraged by both of those players. And I'm just like, hey, let them battle it out and we'll see. And you know what? They both could be important parts of the 2024 team because we don't know what's going to happen with A'Shawn Robinson. And Nacho's here for a little bit longer, but we'll see how that all plays out too. What's going on, Big Blue Banter listeners? I'm excited for the football season for several reasons. And one of those reasons is Prize Picks, which is North America's largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform. And it's so simple to use. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including professionals, sharks, and people who are going to exploit you, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you just watch the winnings roll in. It's very simple to play and gives you a little extra skin. I've set my picks in less than 60 seconds. There are so many stats to choose from, and the withdrawals of funds are easy and quick. Dan and I will be adding a segment to our show before every game where we pick our favorite stats, more or less yards or touchdowns, what have you, and we'll be discussing why from a scheme, matchup, and game theory perspective. I love their promotions and how easy their interface is to operate at Prize Picks. I may select more on tackles for a loss from Bobby Okereke or Kayvon Thibodeau next game. They also do other sports as well. It's a really cool experience. Please join Dan and I in the fun of Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/banter and use code BANTER for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/banter and use code BANTER for a first deposit match up to $100. You will not regret it. Make Little Caesars, the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. There are few things better in the world than kicking back, watching some football, and biting into some delicious Little Caesars pizza. Order online during our Pizza pregame, 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day on Sunday. And get ready for some football and fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Old World pepperoni, extra cheese, Italian sausage, olives, onions, pineapple if you're into that. Put it on half the pie, the entire pie. There are so many other options that I don't have time to name. Slap that on a round crust, a thin crust, a stuffed crust, a Detroit-style deep dish. Either way, you win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game.
Yeah, good point. And we'll see how the development of those young defensive interior linemen go rest of season, Nick. But let's take the time now to dive into some of the film.
Okie dokie, Dan. Let's get into the tape of the New York Football Giants. We're going to start here. This is just a twist that I've seen the Giants run just very often recently. And it's the Jihad Ward as the 3 technique with Bobby Okereke in the A gap on a 3rd down, Dexter Lawrence as a 2-eye technique on the opposite side. And what the Giants do, they've been running this for the last like 5 or 6 weeks now with Jihad Ward specifically. Personnel is what I'm talking about. Jihad Ward sets up, Dexter Lawrence loops, takes about 3 linemen with him just off of attention. And then Jihad Ward loops all the way around the end man on the line of scrimmage, which is usually Kayvon Thibodeau. On this play, it is Azeez Ojulari. And Jihad Ward, look, doesn't really move the needle, but the Giants trust him enough to run this specific twist frequently, and they get a little bit of pressure on Jordan Love. But the main thing I want to bring up, because this is completed, and it ends up setting up a 4th and 1. The Packers convert it on that Dontavian Wicks stupid play where it's like, wasn't he out of bounds? Like, whatever.
That was weird.
Watch Dexter Lawrence. Watch 97. Just watch him right now. And he takes 2 guys and throws them to the side and gets in Jordan Love's face. It's just silly, man. Like, this guy tossed the center on the ground, and then the other guy just stumbles too. He's like, whoa, geez, what the hell was that? It's like a Hurricane Dexter Lawrence over here. The guy's the guy is insane. But
he's probably like 40. He's probably got like 45 pounds on this dude.
I don't know, man. Well, maybe. Yeah,
on
I guess
the center right here.
Oh yeah, Josh Myers is also like he wasn't known as a strong dude at Ohio State. Not that he's weak, but he was more finesse. You know, Ohio State runs that zone concept.
You don't want to run finesse against Dexter Lawrence.
Especially when you don't see him coming, because he's like Josh Myers like, oh, is Okereke coming? Okereke? Right. Oh no, I see Jihad Ward. Jihad Ward's coming. Yeah. Oh, 97 is in my face. Like, that's just a terrible situation to find yourself in. Let's go over 1st and 10, 2:28 in the first quarter. This is the 35-yard pass to AJ Dillon. It's just frustrating, but to the point that we were bringing up before, look at the depth. Look at the depth that the Giants are dropping to. And you could see AJ Dillon just makes a catch, and Jason Pinnock, you need to make that tackle. Jason Pinnock, I remain very high. And he kind of like throws Xavier McKinney to the side there.
At the end, I saw that with McKinney, and not the best tackle either in space from McFadden either.
No, this is but you can see the depth. McFadden's trying to eliminate those crossers, which, good on you, but you got to rally and you got to come down and you got to tackle. And Pinnock was playing, who's at 81, Josiah DeQuara as well. He had his eyes on him, so maybe that distracted him long enough to not set up and frame that tackle well. But we need just better play overall from him. I mean, safeties, you need to know how to tackle, man, and that's been an issue of his this entire year. And here we go. Looks like he
takes 2. I feel like that really hurt him.
I'm just not even certain. Like, he has him teed up. He goes for that inside leg, and that is a very nice move by AJ Dillon. I'll give him that.
It is a nice move, and I thought that too. But I'm also like not exactly certain why he's going for the inside leg there instead of trying to bracket him and push him back inside toward McFadden. That's the thing. Like, why is he taking that angle? That's the thing that stood out to me.
That's a very good point, because then McFadden's got to make that. And then now you have 2 blockers on Deontay Banks. That's a tough position for Deontay Banks to find himself in. And then McKinney, I mean, geez,
he's kind of pushed. Yeah.
AJ Dillon is not a guy I'd want to tackle. Like I feel like generally speaking, people don't like look at AJ Dillon as a running back and they're like, wow, AJ Dillon, he's one of the best running backs. Like, that's not who AJ Dillon is. Yeah. But just looking at him aesthetically, I'm like, that's one of the last guys I'd ever want to see in an alley, because he is just like, I just think he's just all muscle. He's just like a gigantic rock of muscle.
Beast of a human. Yep.
Beast of a human. Exactly. Now, okay, I did include it. This is the Giants fitting counter. This is somewhat of a GH counter, although the sniffer is coming from kind of like a fullback sidecar type of position. So it's not really the H back per se, but regardless, man, it's the same type of concept. Watch, you can see all the block down, step down. Kayvon Thibodeau, keep it tight. Okereke right in. Now you're going to see McFadden overlap, set outside of Okereke, and then what happens? All those inside defenders, Nacho, Jordan Riley, they're going to push to the hole, and now you just have an absolute pile up for the New York Giants, and there's just nowhere for this is lovely. This is beautiful, Dan. This is what I want to see. This is what we barely saw last year, and it's
crazy
really just
how far they've come,
dude. They're just in position, man. That they're right on top of it. I absolutely love it, dude.
Yeah, I mean, this is in a lot of ways not the best Giants season. Obviously, the fans know that. We know that. But, one thing that has been so unbelievably night and day has been their ability to fit counter this year versus last year.
And you could just see how those linebackers are working together. You can see Okereke, he goes a set. McFadden, he's looking between 93 and
Right.
95, realizes that they have it. So he's going to go around Okereke just in case DeGuara, I think that is, eliminates Okereke. So now he's on the outside of they know where each other are going to be. They're working very well together. Let's go over Jason Pinnock's interception on a 2nd and 7. And look, there's not a lot to break down. This is a bad throw, but you're going to see Flott right there just grabs the hip, and it doesn't look like much. I still think this is going to be intercepted regardless, but it probably should have been called. And Pinnock in the center field,
no matter what, but you're right. It should have been called.
Yeah, Pinnock.
I don't understand this decision from Jordan Love. That was where it was bad. It's a bad throw because it hung in the air. I think part of that is just the wind at this stage of the game. But its decision was so odd to me because it's not like Pinnock was like lined up before the snap on the opposite hash. He was lined up on that hash. So it's almost just like he just didn't read him at all.
Even if he was lined up on the opposite hash,
right? Yeah.
Like Jordan Love doesn't look him off. Like, okay, well, maybe you could say right there he looks in that direction, but on the second step, his eyes are already transitioning toward the receiver he's going to target. And his eyes are on him. Like his eyes are on him for a considerable amount of time there, allowing Jason Pinnock to cover that space.
Yep.
All right. Here's the double tip on a 3rd and 4 near the end of the first half. You're going to see, I think it's Ashawn Robinson gets his hand on it, and then Kayvon Thibodeau gets his hand on it. And if you look at Bobby Okereke, watch Bobby Okereke drop into coverage. He's intercepted this, man. He is working underneath the dig route, and it just gets knocked out of the air. And this is like the 2nd or 3rd time this happened to Okereke. Look, I'll take PBUs at the line of scrimmage, but if the linebacker's lined up to intercept it, it's like, can't you just get the PBU on one of the plays where the linebacker's not there? Can the luck just fall in that order, man? Wouldn't that just be absolutely lovely? But you'll see it a little bit from this perspective. You're going to have Jordan Love, he's motioning stuff, and then we're going to have Ashawn come in. Ashawn gets the initial tip, and watch, Okereke's already flowing underneath the dig, and there's not a lot of separation too. You'll see it in a little bit. And then you're going to have Kayvon Thibodeau also tip it. That's an interception, man. Look where Okereke is.
He's 100%. He's running through that.
Unless there's like an insane amount of touch on this or something. I still don't even think there's enough space for that. Yeah. So great job by Okereke, even though no one's talking about him on this play because he didn't really do anything. But he was in position to.
Yep. And if you guys want to see the other angle of that, my All-22 has the opposite angle where you can really see Okereke's eyes and how he reads Jordan Love. And on my angle, it even looks like a more guaranteed interception.
So this is the first play of the second half. Watch Kayvon Thibodeau. This is a misdirection. You're going to have a split back with an H-back, motioning Jaden Reed. You're going to fake it to Jaden Reed and then hand the football. Fake it around Jordan Love to Jaden Reed and then hand the football off to A.J. Dillon with a counter. Backside guard in the sniffer, and watch how the Giants fit it. Now, the linebackers react to Jaden Reed first, but then they quickly realize. But look at Kayvon Thibodeau avoid the backside pulling guard. Okay, I'm going to just throw you to the side. Now I'm going to take on this guy. And Micah McFadden's going to help me drag you to the ground. So this isn't even necessarily the linebackers, although, Micah McFadden does a really good job.
Just watching 41 and 58, I did like how, although they initially reacted to the Jaden Reed motion, they were able to get themselves back in position.
Okereke really kind of didn't. It was more McFadden. He just took a step, but they know exactly where to be. My point is, look at Kayvon Thibodeau. Avoid, clean up the tackle. Like Kayvon Thibodeau, like these little plays like this, man, he makes this stuff every week, bro. It's great to see. See. I love when the Giants win. It's fun. And now we're going to see the sack. Let's look at the coverage real quick. And you're going to see the trips that Dan and I were referencing before. Giants going to rotate the safety a little bit. And there's just really nowhere for Jordan Love to go with the football. But let's look at the feet. Patrick Taylor just kind of kicks. You see it right there. See how he kicks him, and then Ojulari tosses the tackle to the ground. If we look at Dexter Lawrence's power helps him here, but he also just shoves on the transition as he's looping the guard into the center and throws him on the ground.
He just ragdolls so many offensive linemen on tape. It's crazy. It's because you don't see this a lot in the NFL level, like offensive linemen just falling on the ground as often as they do when they're matched up against Dexter Lawrence.
It is a trip, but it's also a trip because Dexter Lawrence shoves him in that direction. Yeah, so like I want to give Lawrence credit on that. It's not as unlucky as Patrick Taylor kicking your leg if you're a tackle. Patrick Taylor, by the way, he got lifed out by Matt LaFleur on that just own-headed play where I was like, dude, why are you jumping out? What are you doing? And LaFleur just went crazy. LaFleur also threw like a little hissy fit on the Dontavian Wicks play. He
Yeah, I
didn't think
saw
he got it. Yeah, he was like, meh. That whole thing.
that.
But dude, Jordan Love got crunched here on this.
Crunched on that play. That was the biggest hit of the game in the pocket.
I was glad to see Ojulari though, just back.
Definitely one of his best, probably his best game of the year.
Yeah. Now we're gonna have this. Now I don't know the defensive call here, so I want to specify that. But the Giants are going to run a zone type of blitz. It looks like maybe a fire zone because five
Yeah.
guys end up coming with the safety, as well as I believe that's Micah McFadden, and then Azeez Ojulari drops off the line of scrimmage to, ostensibly account for that tight end, but he doesn't because the tight end runs a seam, doesn't run a curl, doesn't run anything like that. He runs a seam route, and Cordell Flott, I don't know if they put bracket coverage on 18, who I think is Malik Heath. I don't know why they would necessarily do that. It's not Jaden Reed. It's not Romeo Dobbs. I believe that's Malik Heath out there. You can see Cordell Flott doesn't even account for the tight end. He goes and he helps out his outside cornerback. I think that's Deontay Banks, and gets over the top into the inside of Heath. And it does look like that's the coverage construct, but nobody accounts for Tucker Kraft, which seems odd to me. So it might have been a miscommunication. I'm not going to sit here and hold Cordell Flott's feet to the fire, but something was off here because the tight end shouldn't be streaking down the middle of the field like this.
I mean, it definitely, to me at least, looks like a miscommunication, though. Obviously, we won't know for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And Azeez Ojulari has no urgency to get depth. Like, he even looks at Tucker Kraft. So he believes somebody was going to be accounting for Tucker Kraft on the vertical. But I guess we won't know because we're not in the playroom. That's a big play by the Packers. And then Cordell Flott misses the tackle, which was...
Yeah, that's an extra 15 yards after that missed tackle.
Which was not great, yeah. Again,
it was a bad game for 28, not his best game for sure.
Yeah, he's going to be in the superlatives for sure. You gotta make that play. It's not even just because I thought he had this miscommunication. There were a couple like mistakes where I was like, Flower, what do you know? What do you know, bro? Like, he got burnt on a would-be touchdown that just wasn't completed, but the receiver was wide open, stuff like that. And now we're going to see a guy not get burnt. Top of the screen, Deontay Banks, 3rd and 10, fourth quarter, 5:41 left. Jordan Love takes a big hit on this play from, I think it's Dexter Lawrence, just doing Dexter Lawrence things, but that's a very catchable ball if Deontay Banks doesn't get back in the phase and knock this away. And Deontay Banks, not perfect. I think he surrendered a touchdown to Heath in this game. But man, I am so interested and intrigued by this guy, and I'm so happy he's a New York Giant, Dan, because he's been making a lot of plays like this, and he just has unique movement skills. It's everything that we saw on his tape, plus some.
Right.
And that's something that all Giant fans should be very excited about.
Yeah, I agree. And he plays this one perfectly. You can watch it and you could say the bank is closed on Mondays.
Did you come up with that?
No, of course not. Everyone in the history of the world said that on Twitter last night.
See, I didn't see it. I'm out of touch.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's all right. It's great play by these banks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. All right, Nick, let's get to some superlatives and wrap up with those. I'm going to let you go first here as I scroll up to mine and get to my notes with your unheralded player on tape. We have different ones here, so that's good.
For me, it's Bobby Okereke, and he could have gotten the highest effort. He could have gotten best player overall, but I went with unheralded player, even though we herald him a lot, if that's okay to say. But yeah, Bobby Okereke is where I'm going.
I went with Azeez Ojulari. This was good tape from Azeez, and as I said yesterday on the reaction pod, Nick, if I can get a few more games, the rest of the game strung together of good play from Azeez, it makes my outlook on this team and roster and everything so much rosier for the offseason. So I hope he can build on it. How about highest effort player? We definitely don't have a change here because I think this one's obvious to us both.
Kayvon Thibodeau continues to play with a lot of effort, a lot of hustle, absolutely dispelling the rumors from his pre-draft.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's like when you hear the rumors going into draft season, right? Just thinking about this from like taking a step back, 30,000 foot perspective. Like, you hear these rumors. He's supposed to be a non-high effort guy, but he has a lot of talent, let's say. So he should be a top 5 pick. Let's just use that, for example. It's like, okay, do you expect 1.5 years into this experiment that you're going to have this guy making the highest effort grade on our film week after week? And it's not every week, but a lot of these weeks, every week he's in the mix, and most of these weeks he's won. So it's like that narrative is just a wild narrative. I don't really get it. I know some people, we didn't watch every game at Oregon. That's the thing. Like, we didn't see every game. So I'm sure those
I've seen enough film. I
Oh
think.
yeah. It seems like
Especially considering the context that this dude got hurt in like week 2, rolled his
right
ankle,
through it.
missed
Yeah.
2 games, and then came back, played through it, had like what 9 pressures or 12 pressures against UCLA. Like it's just, I don't know, man. It smelt like BS. I think a lot of people were also just pissed at him because he did that Joel Klatt interview that I keep harkening back to because he essentially threw the Alabama education system under the bus and said the West Coast and Oregon is a much better program than
Mhm.
that pissed a lot of people off, I
It
think.
did piss some people
And
off.
it is arrogant. It's arrogant to say that, but that doesn't mean he doesn't hustle on the football field.
Right.
But
Exactly.
again, there are some tape that I didn't see, so it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was arrogant. I don't think that really meant that. I'm sure the Packers weren't like, you know what? I wish we never got this guy because he was arrogant. Like, it's not a
Exactly.
trait that I'm focusing too much on. Best player on tape. I actually yours is. We had the same guy, but I'm thinking about changing mine. So you go with yours first.
All right, you change it. I'm gonna go with Dexter Lawrence.
Sure.
Again, limited snaps, high impact when he was out there. Just absolutely bitching dudes. So Dexter Lawrence once again.
I'll go Bobby Okereke. I had Dex, but I'll go with Bobby Okereke. He's played more snaps and had more of an impact from that standpoint. Player that we expect to see more from or struggled a bit on tape. We have the same guy here as well.
Yeah, it's Cordell Flott. He got
Another
burnt for a
best.
touchdown that was dropped, had that missed tackle on Tucker Kraft, got annihilated along the sideline by
Yeah.
Reed. He got beat by Reed on a stick route in the fourth quarter. So there were just a lot of like instances where it's like, 28, this is not a great look for you. But I remain high and optimistic because I think you will be a solid football player.
Yeah, agreed. Pass rushing grade 1 through 10.
Went with a 5.9, a little bit above average, nothing necessarily too right home about. They got sacks when they needed to. Those sacks were very important, especially the one that knocked Carlson out of field goal range. So I think 5.9 is fair.
6'4" for me. How about run defense for you? 1 through 10.
6'4" for me on run defense, and I think it would even be a lot better against counter. But they were just,
Yeah.
you know what, 6'4" is fair just overall as well. It could even be a little bit higher. It's not like they were too, they weren't getting like moved around or anything. Especially when
No.
you consider that they were in nickel a lot of the time in this game. They weren't out there in their bare front too
Yeah,
much.
they always are. Yeah, well, not always, I should say, but recently a lot. So, all right, I went 6'6" there. All right, thank you to everybody for tuning in to the Big Blue Banter podcast, the defensive film breakdown. Obviously, you can check out the offensive film breakdown if you want to see some fun Tommy DeVito and Wandale Robinson tape from, earlier before this. Keep it locked and loaded on the Big Blue Banter podcast. More to come this week. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.